Welcome back to 3 Calls In. This is a roundtable conversation between 3 currently working first responders, no departments named, no titles beyond the job, just honest conversations about the realities of this work. This podcast is for a few different audiences. It's for the responders who may hear something here and realize that they're not the only one carrying it. It's for the people outside the job who are curious about what the work actually does to someone over time. And it's for the leaders, department leaders, city leaders, and policymakers who make decisions about these professions but don't always get to hear the unfiltered perspective from the people doing the work. In our first episode, we talked about what the job brings home, the things that follow you off shift and show up in ways people outside the job don't always understand. Today, we're talking about something closely connected to that, the culture of silence. Why so many responders keep things to themselves, the unspoken rules about stress, trauma, and mental health in these professions, and what the silence can cost over time. So let's get into it. What was the expectation for you all if you had a bad call, how to deal with things such as stress, anything that was horrific? Like, what was the expectation for you? Were you supposed to bring it in, bottle it up, pack it, talk to somebody? Was there just kind of speak openly?
My first chief, he was a tech team guy. He was narcotics. He'd been doing it for 20 years. And so he kind of the old school mentality of like, yeah, just go out there and do your job. Yeah, that's rough. Go to your next job, And then the guys around me, they had been doing it for a few years. So they would try to fill those areas with like making jokes or, inappropriate things.
Dark
sometimes.
humor.
Yeah. Dark humor. But as in the beginning, it was just kind of a shock to me. Like I just go home and I didn't know, I'd just be like, holy cow, this is what I saw today. This is what I did today. And I do think through time, it hasn't necessarily been the administrations that have changed, but it's the people that I work with. In the past few years, our crew has really pushed for mental health. We've had guys struggling and they didn't want to talk about it. And now I have guys that are like, hey, no, you need to go talk about this. We need to fix this. We need to, what can we do? And it didn't really come from an administration side. It came from just the guys noticing the other one's hurting.
It's the younger generations that are pushing it.
Yeah. And so that's what I've noticed. But in the beginning, it was just, you didn't talk about it or, just go to the next call or, dark humor that as a new guy, you were like, did he really just say that? Or like, is he really eating his sandwich right now? We're standing over this or, And now I am one of those guys that I'm like, all right, y'all ready to go eat? Like, and then I have to kind of slow down and be like, okay, hey, you're not going to see this every time. This isn't every day. You're going to see 600 of these compared to somebody else's 3 that they're going to see in a lifetime. But yeah, in the beginning, man, they don't, and I'm talking 7-8 years ago, you just kind of were expected to keep going.
Yeah. And when I say the little bits, to elaborate on that, it's the posters on the bathroom wall. When the times when I get to go to the bathroom, the leadership and the administration, like they're putting posters on the bathroom wall, like they're putting like the EAP sticker on the bathroom, and then you call the EAP. And then you find out that they may be therapists or counselors that are not culturally competent. So then you're going to a therapist that is like, whoa. Like I have experience in sending coworkers that have come back to me and said, Danielle, I think I traumatized someone. And I'm like, oh, man.
Great. Is this an HR or non-HR thing?
And I'm like.
Now the therapist needs a therapist.
Yeah. Like, and you're just like, what the heck? So it's just like, did I do that? And it's just like, WTF. And you're just like.
Well, and I know what you mean by the posters on the wall. I mean, it's almost like they're required to put them on there. And so they just slap them up there and that's a thing. And not, making a promotional video for Inner Circle, but they have people that now, like our guys, one of our guys goes through something and we're automatically like, hey, you checked out Inner Circle, like, hey, we'll work with them. go up there, just call them, see what happens. And we get text messages and stuff. They hear what happens in our areas, and they're the first to reach out to some of our guys. But you didn't have that back then. It was
Mm-mm.
just, we're required to stick this mental health poster in the wall so you don't go do something stupid. And
Yeah.
we didn't warn you.
Department of Labor or whatever,
Mhm.
government
Yeah,
puts it out there.
and so nowadays, like now that there are more resources and more and people that are acknowledging it and actually care about it, it's not like, oh well, it's just a Monday through Friday that pays me money. There's actually people that want to help. I know I could pick up the phone and call Colin at 2 o'clock in the morning and be like, hey, I just say it's for me. I just got into a shooting. I don't know what to do. And he'd talk me through it. I know he would do that, and you didn't have that back then. It was just a
Mhm.
1-800 number that nobody talked about.
I would say it's like EMS now, school wise, and having been involved in that with a local institution for the past decade, I feel like we're doing a better job of it, getting prepared. I feel like coming onto the fire service, I had much of a greater idea of what I was potentially walking into. Your clinical hours are more, you go through EMT, paramedic, you're going out on an ambulance, you're going into the hospitals. It's almost like a soft entrance to that field. Whereas PD, you really don't have that. It's like, hey, I want to join the police department, I fill my application out, and I'm in a recruit academy, and then I'm on the streets, and oh my God, what did I walk into? Whereas EMTs and paramedics, they get that slow introduction into it. And I have seen more of a drop over the past 10 years of people that have walked out because they ran a clinical and they either had a pediatric death or they had something that was too close to home. Their grandpa had passed away, and then they just ran a 75-year-old male in cardiac arrest.
Mhm.
And they leave that field before they get deep into it.
Mhm.
Whereas 10, 15 years ago, you did your academy at IMSA or you did your academy at your local EMS agency, and
Went
you
and
were
got
out
on the
2 weeks
bus.
and done.
Mhm.
We need bodies on the street. Let's get in there. And I loved how you said cultural competency, because that's something that the national EMS level has
Mhm.
really changed that. Even on the grading effectives and the rubrics that we use now, the bottom one is cultural competency. Are you aware of what you're doing and what others are doing are impacting you and your patient care? And I think understanding that a little bit more is kind of helping that. The fire service, the tide is turning on mental health. They're starting to realize that, you don't just come in, eat it, compartmentalize it, stick it in the back of your brain, and then go on about your day. We're having, bad calls, and people are checking on individuals or offering, services. Inner circle, as you mentioned, great. It floods through departments now. That name follows. You've got other places like Warriors Rest and other things that are out there to help these individuals out. So I think it is coming to light. I still think it's like decades away from being a norm, going through an academy and you have a week of mental health instead of, 12 weeks or however long your academy was, and then getting put out on the streets. We're like, hey, let's slow it down a little bit and let's talk about these calls you could run.
Well, and what's crazy for us is we're in the state of Oklahoma. Law enforcement is they have to get 25 hours of continuing education training a year, which is nowhere near enough. But 2 hours of those have to be mental health. So 365 days a year, 12-hour shifts, everything you see, and the state says you need 2 hours of mental health training. Like, are you kidding me? Like, we're still not there. Like you said, we're still decades away from saying, okay, hey, half of that has to be mental health or whatever. And I don't know if y'all have
No
training.
requirement for mental health.
Yeah. See,
Zero.
Mhm.
and just to say 2 or 0 or whatever, that small of number. And I'll be honest with you, I can log onto a website, watch 2 videos, and that's 2 hours of mental health training. And it's just crazy to me.
Mhm.
And as soon and let's be real about that. As soon as you put first responders in a educational setting and you switch the dial to mental health, as soon as you do it, and I'm going to look right into the camera for this and say, as soon as we start talking about mental health, you shut your brains off and you quit listening. And I'm going to tell you, you need to start listening. It's important. And you need to understand it. And you need to listen to me. It's important. You need to listen to yourself. And you need to make yourself a priority. And you need to appreciate yourself and love yourself and understand that we are important. We need to make it number one because we're not going to progress as a priority in the system, in the society, until we move forward in mental health and start using healthy coping skills. Because when I would run a bad call 25 years ago, my coping skill was to go home and assume the fetal position for about 24 hours and just chew on it and chew on it, and then just go back and just do it all over again. And I can still, to this day, remember that first 5-year-old that I pulled out of the pool. I can vividly tell it. I could replay it for every last person sitting in this room, because I haven't processed it. And that was 25 years ago.
So to segue to that, what
Mhm.
happens when somebody does come out and says, "Hey, this is bothering me"?
Mhm.
So what happens? What happens at your agencies? What's happened in the past? Like, what happens when they finally say, "Hey, I need some help. I'm
Mhm.
putting the red flags up here. I've got to get something. Otherwise, something may be happening to myself, or
Mhm.
I'm out of here." Either, and it's not always that we're going to hurt myself or harm others. It may just be quitting, right? Financially impacting my family. So what happens at that point when we admit these things?
I mean, at my department 2 years ago, they rubbed some dirt on it, and we've started progressing towards. It took one individual struggling, and we all of us guys saw it, and we didn't talk about mental health at our department until this happened. The guy ended up losing his job, and we were like, "Hey, y'all didn't see the signs. Y'all didn't see the signs." And when you're working with administration that's got 20, 30, 40 years on the job, they're like, "I don't know. No, I got to do this. I
It
got to
wasn't
push this
tough enough.
paper. I got to."
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but then we started pushing for it. And now, thankfully, if I walked into my sheriff's office today, my department's office today, uh,
Redact.
and I was like, "Hey, I need some help." They're still don't know what to do, but they're at least like, "Okay, what do we need to do? What's
Yeah.
your idea?"
Here's your pathway.
Yeah, yeah. They're not going to be able to tell me exactly what to do, but they're going to say, "You tell us what we need to do to help you." But up until then, it was just they'd look at you and be like, "Okay, there's still a call going. Like you need to go to that call."
And
So
and that's a huge thing, is because it's not always, a lot of individuals, even outside of first response agencies, think, well, if this person cracks, they're going to, commit suicide, or they're going to become addicted. And sometimes just having to leave that job due to that issue, that financial burden, we don't realize what the dominoes are behind that.
Mhm.
We don't realize that if I'm the only sole provider of the house and I have kids, I have a mortgage, I have bills, I leave, we lose, I can't get a job, I can't get something that pays equally. Now we're in debt. I mean, it's a hell of an effect down the road. And we see people like, "I'll just quit, just leave. If you don't like it, quit." And it's like, that's not the answer, right? Because that's a financial impact. It's just as bad as a mental health impact. It's just as bad as an addiction. So like, for you all, somebody admits, EMS wise, over the past 25 years, what happens in an EMS's life?
It's a huge, it's a huge it's a huge burden. I mean, I'll be incredibly vulnerable with the group. My husband was in law enforcement for 5 years, and it it was incredibly hard on him. Um, he struggled with, conforming to that culture. Um, I can't imagine what it's like to be in law enforcement right now. Society is wishy washy on law enforcement. You guys can't win for
no,
for
no, we can't.
losing.
Give a money ticket.
Yeah,
You guys are heroes on one side, or you're
the devil
loved
on the other.
Yeah.
and you're hated on one side. Um, and
So our firemen are loved by everybody.
Yeah,
I know.
and the fire department is loved by everyone. And 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 my husband, it was not a fit for him. And we as a family looked at it and we decided it just was not right fit for him, and he stepped away from it. And you know, so it took on, for me to bring on that as a financial to um bring on to work full time in EMS, and that's difficult. So to carry a full house in EMS, that's difficult to do mentally, to work to support a family of 4 in EMS. That's unheard of.
Plus the calls you're running, dealing with the mental stress
Yes,
of that, plus the bills, then
all
coming
of
home and
that.
being mom on top of that.
I was not a mom. I was an absent mother to 2 girls. So I was pulled constantly. So I carried a lot of guilt, which brought in the pickle story.
The old pickle. Give him the pickle.
It just the pickle story. And I love your reference for
That'll
that.
never leave my head. That was Cole's training from 2002 when I was just a baby retail kid, and I had to watch the Give him the Pickle video, and then I wound up at a fire department, and the video they showed me during orientation was the Give Me. I was like, oh no, why has this come back 15 years?
Well, no, I think a lot of the thing is like the civilians, they don't understand the pay we do make. I mean, we don't make great pay. And then
No.
so for you saying your husband left and then you left his job and then you had to financially support the family for a little bit on EMS pay. I mean, we're talking maybe $20 an hour. Like they don't realize that it's not your
Mm-mm.
other job. That's not like, oh, well, I'm clearing 100 grand a year, working 5 days a week. That's unheard of in law enforcement, unless you work for a giant agency. And that's in a state that 100 grand is not a lot of money. So people don't, when you hear us saying that, leaving the job and the financial burdens, like there probably was already somewhat of a financial stress just because they don't, we work for a government agency. They don't pay us a lot. And then to have to decide to leave that and be in a situation like that, people just don't understand it. Like
Yeah.
it's not like you can go from, you worked in retail. If you left one retail agency, you could probably go find it. They'd be like,
yeah.
oh, hey, but
We bounce around all the time.
yeah. But now it's like, oh, I'm going to leave law enforcement. That's all I know. I don't know what else to do. If somebody was like, okay, you can't be a cop anymore, I'd be like, okay, well, what am I going to do? So I'd be living in California and people be using that app to track where I go to the bathroom. So
Right. It's
I hope not.
it's just like, everybody just doesn't understand, just me walking in here. I walked in like 3 minutes late because we're all working multiple jobs to compensate, to support our families for all of it. Because I work 3 jobs. I don't only work on the ambulance. I work a nonprofit to support the deaf and blind, to advocate to 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 cross a bridge between the deaf and blind and first responders. And then I do this to support mental health for first responders, and then I'm also on the ambulance, I mean, all to support my family. And then I just got off a 36-hour shift, to support my family. And then last night I slept on the couch with my 6-year-old because she hasn't seen me in 36 hours and her feet were in my face. I don't share that, to have a pity party. I share that because I hadn't seen my 6-year-old in 36 hours and her feet were disgusting. I don't share that for anybody to feel sorry for me. I'm sharing that, to just paint the picture.
Right.
A single person might have just slept with their dog because they hadn't seen their dog in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Let's just paint a different picture.
Right.
Or their cat, or their lizard, whatever their thing is. I don't know.
And it's like one of those things too. It's like I heard somebody when I started EMS. I started EMS and fire right almost
Mhm.
within 6 months of each other, and it's like I heard somebody say something to me that stuck with me with EMS particularly. It was like, I don't work overtime to make extra money. I work overtime to make the bills.
Mhm.
And to
Yes.
me, that's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute. You shouldn't be having, we shouldn't have a profession that's sole purpose is to provide care to others that can't even provide care to its employees. And that's a structure. That's not one entity. That's a structure across the country.
Right.
Right. And that's fire. That's police. I always hear people, oh, you're all well paid. You're well paid. You're well. What is well paid? What is the definition? Right. Are we looking at, average income? Are we looking at, are you middle class, upper middle class? Because I feel like the old upper middle class is now lower middle class based on gas and all these different things that are out there. So it's like mental health. So do we not seek mental health because it's another thing to pile on top? It's another ice cream scoop on top. You're working overtime, plus you're trying to be a mom, plus you're trying to, the family, doing all these different things. Do we not seek mental health because it's an additional thing to do? Or are we not seeking it because we're afraid of repercussions?
I think it's fascinating that you say that because I think that movie, Code 3, really
Great movie.
great movie.
Fantastic. Rainn
Yes.
Wilson.
I think the first 15 minutes of that movie really kind of wraps that up because, Rainn Wilson, um, really, or the paramedic, um, really, he, is in, I think, Philadelphia or something, was the writer of that movie. And all of those calls are dramatized. He really did a good job with that. But the first 15 minutes of that movie, he brings in a patient, and there's this interaction between Rainn Wilson and a attending physician, and they have this interaction. And as Rainn Wilson is exiting the emergency room with his partner, they exit the emergency room, and as they exit, there's the salaries of all of the
Mm-hmm.
employees. And as Rainn Wilson and his paramedic partner exit, the salaries of the EMS employees are tens of thousands of dollars less. And that just kind of gives you a reality of where EMS falls. But and that's why, to bring in Justin, where EMS employees really struggle, most EMS employees live off of, especially single parents, live off state assistance. I recall having a conversation with a single mother who really carried a lot of shame because she relied on state assistance to care for her child. And I remember having a conversation with her and telling her to not carry that shame because she was keeping her child, fed and cared for, and told her, don't carry that shame, that this was just a time that you were caring for your child, that you were doing the best that you could, and that you will get over this time, and to carry your head with pride. And as far as I know now, she's thriving
Good.
and doing quite well for herself. So I would say bravo to her.
Do you feel it's like an addition, something we just have to stack on? And
I do think it
Right.
is. I think that, I mean, as both of y'all know, it's like when we're doing this, it's like, okay, earlier we were talking schedules, and this week we've
Mhm.
emailed about schedules, and it's like, where am I going to put that in?
Yeah.
Where am I going to, and thankfully it's worked out for all of us so far. But I also think it's, do people want to talk about it? I've never been a big guy to, until I watched one of my friends go through a struggle. I've never been a big guy to talk about mental health. I've always been like, hey, that's just a job,
Yeah.
Of course. Oh, you've seen that? I've seen this. We just compared stories. But now I think it's more of a, do people want to talk about it? It's there. It's there in every single first responder. If you've worked one call, I'd say if you've gone through an academy, gone through the training for any one of our jobs, there's something there that, because I'm sure y'all's are like mine, they tell you in the academy, this is what you're going to see, and they slap a big picture up of something horrific up
deceased
there.
person,
Yeah.
train wrecks, all kinds of stuff.
So if you've been through it, if you've been through the academy, I think that you have something that you need to talk about, and it may not be with a professional, it may be with, your spouse or something like that. But I think it's more of people don't want to talk about it, and then once they finally do decide, like, hey, I need to talk to somebody about this, they open their calendar and say, well, where's this going to fit in?
Yeah.
I don't, and we're going to put ourselves. It's our job. We put ourselves on the back burner to help others. So you haven't seen your kid in 36 hours. Then you got to make the decision. Well, am I going to take 2 or 3 hours out of that because I'm being silly? And this is what we'll say, because I'm being silly and think that I need help. I've been there. I've done it, so I think it's a lot of that. It's a little bit of both.
Yeah. And like, so civilians, the outside looking in, now we've kind of talked about the inside and the workings of like EMS, fire, and police. So civilians, I hate this question. I know we all hate this question. What's the worst thing you've ever seen?
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
if you're out there, don't ask us that question. Just don't. Just stop yourself. Quit asking it. Because I'm going to tell you flat out the worst thing I've ever seen, and I'm either going to horrify you and I'm going to haunt your dreams and your nightmares, or I'm going to tell you I saw somebody choke on a piece of chicken at Chick-fil-A and that was the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm going to lie to you, or I'm going to rock your world, right? But don't ask us that question. Ask us, how many babies we've brought into the world. Ask them how many hands we've held during bad times. Ask those questions. So what is it the civilians, when they're looking at us, what do you think that we carry? What do you think that we carry on us?
No, yeah. And something that you said earlier about the coworker you were talking about, you said single mother. So we've talked about, the financial burdens. We've talked about let's talk about the single mother. What civilians don't understand is this job will break your relationship. I mean, meet a first responder that has, not gone through a severe relationship struggle. So they don't understand that. And then they don't understand like you said, like, well, what's the worst call you've been on? I always tell them, I'm like, let me tell you about the coolest call.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so, like you said, they couldn't handle, and I'm not talking bad about anybody, but they couldn't handle what we see. They think it's in the, TV shows, they say, for us, they get in a shooting and then they're going to work the next call. That's not how it works for us. Hollywood has just kind of made things crazy, but, I'll use Chicago PD. Hank Voight goes and does all this crazy
fire
stuff.
That as well.
Yeah. Man, that's like my favorite show.
No,
don't ruin it for me. But like, they go get in these wild, crazy, shootings, or The Rookie, like all this crazy stuff, and then it's just the next day they're perfectly fine. Like they've done better with going to show that at night it's stressful on them, but it doesn't show the next day. So these civilians think that we're just like Superman, and it's like, oh, we did that, let's go on to this. And it's not that way. We were actually, my fiance and I were having the conversation just yesterday in the car driving home, about civilians asking that question, hey, tell me this, tell me that. And I think she said it best. She said, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. It's that I finally have gotten past it. And the second you ask me that question, that exact image from 25 years ago will pop up in my head. And then I have to relive it. I have to rethink it. And like, I'll use my father as an example. He was in the business world, like, oh yeah, this deal went bad 25 years ago, but now it doesn't matter, and that's not us. That we can't do that. It's still there. That's a memory. And it's not only for me, it's not only the deceased person in the horrible car accident, it's going to their family's house and having to tell them, that they're not coming home. Yep. It's not just a bad business deal, or, you screwed up balancing a checkbook for a company or whatever it may be. So it's more of like, every time you ask us that, you're making us relive it. And it's something that we've gotten past, whether in a good or bad way. And now here it is again, so.
I agree 100%. I think it's just understanding that no matter how many coping skills that we acquire, as much gratitude and as humbling as it is to be a part of the experience of bringing life into the world, Um, I would agree with you, Justin. It's nice to be a part of that. I wish the beds came apart and we could catch all those wonderful things that come with bringing babies into the world. I would agree. That's nice. Um, um, I'm just reliving the first time I got to catch that baby, and losing the placenta. Losing the placenta.
That's funny.
You're like, really good. Oh, really bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
now what?
Has anybody seen that? Did you get it? Did I get it?
Well, you said
Trash bag.
yes. You triggered my first baby. I see. The first time I delivered my first baby, the lady wanted to keep her placenta and encapsulated
Mhm.
it. You see, you triggered it. And I was like, "Oh, I don't think you want to keep that placenta. We're not real good at cleaning the
Got dog hair on
ambulance
it.
floor." Because I had never heard of encapsulating placentas. And she's like, "Yes, I really wanted to do that." And I was like, "Ooh."
Just for as long as I've been in the business, and it seems like long is in comparative, but the only baby I've ever delivered was my only daughter last year. It's the only baby I ever got to physically deliver.
Oh,
That's cool.
wow.
Been there while
That's
people have been in
awesome.
labor, but the only baby I physically have delivered was my own daughter. It was the greatest experience. I'm like,
That's
if
super
everyone could just
fantastic.
relive that over and over
Mhm.
versus, ceasing chest compressions
Mm-hmm.
or, kids finding grandparents deceased or if we could take all that and trash it and just
Mhm.
deliver babies all the time and do all the cool stuff, it'd just make this job so much better, but we can't.
Yes.
I mean, and it gets you like, I'd say the most awkward thing, and it even goes outside of, tell me about your worst call.
Mhm.
One of the most awkward phrases that I hear is "thank you for your service."
Oh,
I know that's
Yes.
weird, and I'm sorry.
we do appreciate it.
Yes.
We do appreciate
yes,
it.
we
but, like,
do.
But it puts us
It's-
in an
like-
awkward
yes,
situation.
it's
You're like,
so
"Thank
awkward
you."
to feel
And I
that.
just,
I was
like-
like,
Yeah,
oh,
I
it
say
makes
thank
me
you, and
want
I'm
to
like,
side hug,
crawl
it's
up
like,
in
"Thanks."
this chair and just be like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When they say thank
It's
you
a great
for,
job.
it's like, how
Yeah.
do you respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because to do this job, it's like so natural to me to come into complete chaos and to control it. Like I can go into complete madness and and just okay,
I'm
I
good.
got this.
Yeah.
I got this. I can do this, but I cannot manage my own home. Like I cannot. My husband's great at it, but I suck at it.
Yeah.
But I can manage like a cardiac arrest, but I cannot manage my own home. But like for someone to say thank you for your service, I'm like, I don't even know how to respond.
If you
At
want a good
all.
reaction, tell them you're welcome.
And I say that, and then,
I'm
and then I'm like,
And they're like,
then I walk away, and they're like,
I'm like,
or I'll say,
crawling
"Thank you
up
for
in
what you
this
do," and they're like,
chair.
"I'm retired."
If you
I'm like,
say thank you for your
"Thanks
service,
for
I'm
being
like,
retired."
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like I can like, what are you talking about? It's something I do every day. Like I'm crawling in the chair because I'm like, what are you talking about? It's
Yeah.
like it's
It's
a
my
natural
job.
reaction.
that's
Like,
what they,
Yeah,
again, we appreciate you
Yes.
telling
Yeah.
us that.
we do.
But
We're
what
super
they-
thankful, but it's
What
like
they don't understand is
I got-
we look at it the
I
same
gotcha.
exact way as
yeah, how you
Donna.
they
balance
look
your
at
checkbook.
them going to their
Every day.
job.
Yeah.
Like, it's just our
Day in, day
job.
out.
We got
But we
you.
appreciate
And I
it.
had somebody stop and they're
Yeah.
like, "Well, why does that bother you?" Because they could tell. Like it just was like,
Yeah.
"You're
Why are you
welcome."
crawling
or thanks.
out of your
and they're like, "Why does
skin?"
it bother you?" And I
Yeah.
said, "Well, everybody has a role to play in society.
Mhm.
Period. It doesn't matter. Some will be firefighters, some will be police officers, some will be EMS workers, and all the way." And the way I looked at it, looking at the retail aspect, was that I always had the thought process: you need to know every job from the bottom up, right? Everybody has an important role to play, and it's like there's a spot for everybody in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just my
My
spot.
spot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This isn't anything special. You checking somebody out at Walmart, thanks for being here. What if I walked up to you and said, "Thank you for your service"? You would think I'm being sarcastic to a
Mhm.
Walmart employee, right? If I walked up and said that. But to us, it's almost like if you don't respond properly.
Yeah, like we're
being
thankful that
rude,
you don't
yeah.
have you're not at the self checkout and making us do it ourselves.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
it's just as important.
Yeah. I like scanning those bananas all the time.
Yeah.
They're not really Honeycrisp apples.
Yeah. But I think everybody can pick up when someone's having a shitty day. Yeah. Oh, we are?
Beep.
Oh.
She's like,
Yeah.
Redacted.
I
you
think
just let us do something.
I think everybody can tell when someone's having a real shitty day, even from the Walmart checkout
Right.
person.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I think that's important to recognize that. And so,
My ears turned solid
yeah,
red. Like it's the weirdest, like
you
just
know.
bright red.
Well,
So
and
clearly you can tell who's the paramedic in the room.
what I don't
So,
think a lot of civilians realize is we are not doing anything that most of humanity would not do.
yeah.
We just do it for a job. I mean, you've stopped at a car accident, you've done whatever you're trained to do to help. It's just our job to go do it. Like that, we get paid to go do it, and we see a lot more of it. But when you think it's for a service, like it's something that majority of society would do if they just pulled up on that
Mhm.
accident.
So looking now at mental health, we've kind of covered aspects from what was it when we entered in first responders, what was it that, would keep us from, and then what happens when we do seek for help, to the societal aspect of it, now to leadership, right? We got to cover all aspects and then just wrap it up at the end. So leadership, what would you all want your leadership, whether that's a city council, that's city managers, mayors, governors, whatever that may be, what would you all want them to know about mental health and kind of just a little nutshell?
I would say just because you don't think you've experienced it, don't think you need something or you need help or you need to talk to somebody. If you're the tough guy that rubbed dirt on it, 30 years ago, not every single one of us are the same. Times have changed. For me, you know, back 20 years ago, how many cars were traveling down the highway compared to how many are traveling down now, like, so the accidents I see may be more than what you saw, or maybe more horrific than what you saw. Or, um, the other day we got a call of a suicidal subject, and he was visiting his friend at the grave, and they all wanted to show up and just put him in cuffs and let's go. And I literally told everybody to stay back. And I just said, hey, just say it. Just say it out loud. And they're like, you took too much time on that call. I'm like, no, I sat with him at his friend's grave, and he was talking to his friend. His friend had committed suicide. So he's talking to his friend. His friend was going to tell him whether to do it or not. And I said, just say what you need to say out loud. And he just talked to me about his situation. And at the end, he was like, can I have your phone number? And then I get told, you spent too much time on that call. You tied up too many resources. You never know what each individual person's going through. So yeah, you may have 30 years more than me on the job, but you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know the methods that I'm going to take, or who I need to talk to, or what I need to do. And so just look at us as a human being. Look at us as one of the citizens you serve. Like, you have all that care for them when it comes to this. Treat me just the same way.
I love that you said that, because like something that I always struggled with relationship wise until I got married to my wife now is that she taught me, and this is how I look, kind of what you just said. You can't tell someone how to feel,
Mhm.
right? And that was like a huge, and I don't know why it took me until I was in my 30s to realize this. I'm an idiot.
It's that prefrontal
Dumbass, yeah, I know.
cortex doesn't kick in
But it was
until
like,
you're in your 20,
she
25,
was like,
30.
just because you don't think I should be upset doesn't mean I can't be upset,
Mhm.
right? And so I've learned that it's like, how you feel is how you feel.
Mhm.
And I think what you're saying is this guy's going through a hard time, and it's like, you're not there to judge him. You're there to listen to him. That's your job. You're getting paid. He's paying your salaries, and so you took that time, and you took someone who may have committed suicide, and you put his train on a different set of tracks.
Right.
And so I like that you brought that up, that you actually connected with someone and kind of shifted. And the waste of resources, like, come on, really? Waste of resources. The only waste of resources is if you're using something for your own personal gain, then we can call it a waste of resources.
Mhm. I think we really have to start to get to the point where we really have to stop listening to ourselves and really get to a point where we're having conversations and using active listening skills in leadership, because they're just too busy listening to themselves still, and we're not listening to what our future is bringing to the table. still. I'm just the old I can't speak to the fire or the law enforcement side, but I just I cannot as the old culture in EMS is still very prevalent even in the last 24 hours, and I would speak to just trying to break that old EMS culture and just listening to what this young generation brings to the table, and to put it bluntly, just shutting your hole and listening to what they have to say, because they bring so much intelligence to the conversation. They're very quite intelligent in what they have to say. They bring enlightenment. They want time. You know, when I started, just like you said, Justin, you were working to pay your bills. You know, this new generation, they want their time.
They work to
They
live.
they want experiences. You know, they want they want to, you know, go on trips.
Mhm.
They want time from if they run a bad call, they want their time off and go.
Working to live, not living to work.
Yes, they
Yes. Yeah.
want that life work balance. They don't want to work 36 hours. They don't. And when they get off shift, they want to leave.
Yep.
These new kids that are coming into this work, they want to leave the shift. And and if we don't really shift the dynamic, I would wonder what EMS would look like in the future, because they're getting into it and they're realizing that this is just not for them, and they're going into other forms of healthcare. And if we don't look at mental health and change the dynamic and provide them with resources, because they're getting the education and they know coping skills. They already know because they're seeing it in high school. They're educated, they're bright, they're young. They already know because they've had experiences, unfortunately, and they're going to tell us to kick rocks. And I would say, shut your mouth, listen to what they have to say, or they're going to tell us to F off. And you are the ones that would have to change. Those of us that have been in it for 25 years, if you don't start listening to what these young people have to say and what their goals and aspirations are for our future in EMS might not have a chain of survival for the future. That's what I would have to say about the mental health of
like
EMS
that you
survivors.
bring up talking about the future. So if you had a magical today, get a little magical mental health wand that you could wave around and change one thing about mental health in first responders as a whole, what would you all do? Just one thing that you could change today. Of the mental health genie pot here.
Just one's tough. I would say that obviously when we bring these people into our careers, it's not so much stress of, you know, what nozzle to put on a hose or what, you know, route to take, or, you know, if it's this or that. We need to spend time teaching people mental health, that it's okay to talk about it, and just really pushing it, saying it's okay. Like, it's okay to not be okay, and you have to prioritize yourself. I mean, I think that would be my thing, is we have to spend more time from the get-go, from day one, with each individual that comes into first responders, and make that the priority. Because we don't have our mental health under control. We're not serving our citizens. And so what good does it do? So that would be my thing, is make sure that we're really preaching that in the beginning.
I would agree. To build on that, it's okay not to be okay, doing regular check-ins with each other, leadership, doing check-ins with leadership, um, coworkers, peer support building on peer support teams, um, building culturally competent therapist groups, really building on that and growing that group would be ideal, and filtering through that would be a huge um, goal, and wonderful asset, would be such a blessing.
I think if I could wave my magical mental health wand, it would be cities and agencies to look at debriefs as not a strain on a system, but
Hmm.
more of we are building into the budget, whatever you need. It's not a blank checkbook, but when
Hmm.
you have critical stress or you have a critical incident that happens, you have a shooting that happens, what agencies are involved. And I know with EMS agencies and fire agencies in the past, they have happened sometimes here and there. And I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes when we pick critical incidents to go over, as agencies, we look at and this is going to sound really weird, but we look at what is going to be perceived by the outside. So
Hmm.
is this going to be on the media? Well, we need to get ahead of the ball. And so we need to debrief our individuals,
Yeah.
because this could become something on the outside. We don't
Yeah.
look at it as this was a pediatric arrest. All right, let's get the EMS agency, let's get fire, police involved.
Hmm.
15 minutes. Hey, we have a therapist. There's somebody up front. Here's some numbers. Here's some stuff. We're all going to meet downtown at Station 1, or we're going to meet at our admin building. You need your your patrol covered. You need your position covered for 30 minutes. And it's just something that is just happening, right?
Hmm.
It's not requested. It's not because we feel like it's going to be a big deal in the media. We have a list. These are the things. And when this happens, it automatically triggers a debrief.
Hmm.
Because what I've seen in the past, when we've had debriefs in fire and EMS agencies, people show up sometimes because it's
Hmm.
optional. And I don't think it should be optional. Now, do you have to
I
talk?
agree.
That's optional. You have to show up, right?
Yeah.
Because your attendance could mean something to somebody else that's
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
Your presence shows that person that you respect their feelings.
Yeah.
That may be having a problem with it,
Mhm.
right? So it should not be optional. It should be
Mhm.
mandatory, right?
Yeah.
You should be on the job and paid. It should
Mhm.
be immediate, just like when a dog poops on the floor. If you don't correct it in the action, it's like, hey, what did I do 2 hours later, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be immediate. And it's got to be something where it's not, hey, if you don't talk, then, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Mhm.
Or if you show up, you're weak. We need to get
Mhm.
rid of that. So my magic wand would be debriefs are mandatory. These are critical. And there's always that other category, right? When someone just raises their hand and says, that jacked me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk about it?
And really, the way that's set up is and I've been in multiple CISM debriefings, and I have never once felt like I've ever been in a place of judgment.
Yeah.
It's always been a place of acceptance and welcoming. Never once have I ever felt judged in multiple scenarios. Never once.
The percentage of calls you've ran, though, of how many should have been debriefed, how many were actually debriefed?
Not
Not enough.
not enough.
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
That's what needs to change. That's my
Yeah.
magical
Oh,
wand,
I
is that
agree.
we look at it and we say, you have 25 years plus of EMS service. I bet you less than 1% of the calls you've ran that should have been debriefed have ever been debriefed.
Correct. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's our miss. Is that
Yes.
it's just like, you get to go home and deal with it your way. And you get to go home and deal with your way. Hopefully you have positive coping mechanisms. Hopefully you have positive coping mechanisms. We can bring you together and talk about it. So
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes down to a checkbook and a budget and all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I was a
And-
wand. I
and-
just granting the wishes out there.
Mm-hmm.
In my household, when there's something emergent happens, I always tell my fiance, we don't have the money for this. I said, we'll figure it out. If it's the right thing, we'll figure it out. And it always works out. She cannot stand it, but I'm like, it'll all work out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I just wish that sometimes your administration had that. Like, I don't know where this money's going to come from. I don't know, figure it out. But it needs to be done.
Yes.
We need to do this, and we'll figure it out. Yeah. Because I promise you, your city's not giving you all the money that they can. Your county's not giving you all the money that they can. They will find a way to do it, and just make sure it's for something good, and it'll work out.
Do we need parks, or do we need critical incident stress management?
Yeah, right.
Do we need what do we need to do here? Where's our priority list, and where does it really fall? And I know, like, fire and police, law enforcement, they're the biggest drains on most budgets that are out there, because with the fire department, we don't bring really anything in. We are a non-returning. We just spend the money there. You got prevention and education that will sometimes bring things in with writing tickets and stuff, but it's hard, I know, from a city perspective, to look at that and be like, we can give more money to something that doesn't have an ROI, or return on investment. And I think that you've got to look at it from external, and you've got to move it to internal customers. And I brought that up last week, but you've got to look at what's going to actually impact your employees before you start looking at what's impacting the bottom dollar. So,
because if you impact your employees, guess what they're going to go do? Go impact the people on the outside.
They're going to make it fantastic. Yeah. They're going to get better customer service. They're going to give
the happier yours are, the happier everybody else is.
Yeah. It's like you're home. Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm very lucky too, that when I get home, it's like my wife has been in EMS since 2012. And so, like, my first pediatric call and my first this and that, like, I've been able to have that conversation with her and have somebody unpack. 99% of the rest of the service doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. They may have someone who stays at home. They may have somebody who works in finance, or, another industry. And so when they get home, it's like, you can't talk about it. I can go home and I can be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh, this is what I saw today, and we can have those conversations without being like, that's disgusting, I don't want to hear about it, or I don't want those mental images. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people shut down too when they hear that, when it's like, I can't even tell my spouse about this. How am I going to go tell somebody else?
Right.
It's not even my best friend or the person I love. So.
And I take that back to the guy that was sitting at his friend's grave. Like, I just told him, just say it out loud. Cause for me, that's my thing. I don't need a response. Yeah. I may need a response, but my preference is no response. Just say it out loud. Yeah. And if I can say it out loud, I can start processing it. I can start figuring out. So that's what I told him. Just say it out loud. I am a guy that you can say it in front of, that it's not going to bother. And so it's one of those things. Like, if you have somebody that you can't just say it out loud in front of, it just makes it even tougher.
And that there goes back to public perception. The fact that you handled that the way that you did, if someone in the public saw that right there goes back to public perception. Perception in the public right now is reality. Okay. The fact that you had that interaction with a citizen, you had a conversation with that gentleman. Now, so how long have you been on the
10 years.
10 years. Now, you take someone that may have taken the mentality to take that gentleman and just thrown him in cuffs and had a tussle. And that might have looked a little differently. Mm-hmm. And you had taken someone that may have been, like, let's say 25 years old. And so that perception would have been they had just thrown him down in the dirt, and that had looked real ugly. But you had a conversation with a gentleman. That looks a lot better than a sheriff's deputy that had a conversation with someone that was struggling.
And not just
and it
for
looks
them,
a lot
for me
better.
Too. It feels a lot better
and
that I got to have the conversation than fight him.
So. Yeah.
And save money from booking fees too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That stuff. Yeah.
Well, and he had told me, he said, I don't want to go to the mental health hospital. I've been there. And by the end of sitting down and talking, it became his idea. Not that, I mean, it was going to happen either way, but at the end, he said, I want to go.
Voluntary EODs, yeah.
Yeah, he said, I want to go. And I'm like, that's the difference.
We don't even want to start where Oklahoma is on mental health. That's a whole nother podcast.
We'll save that for next week.
Yeah.